Hello, hello. My name is Michelle Drew, and I am your host here on From a Mess to a Message, where I interview inspiring people who have gone through a messy time in their life and they've come through the other side and they have a story of hope and inspiration for you all. So, the man that I'm about to introduce you to has such an inspirational story of how he overcame addiction and became the man, husband, and father he always hoped to be. He is the creator of Conquer Me, which is a podcast, a self-help podcast, and he's the owner of Strong Body Fitness. We met at a training in Boca Raton where I saw his family light up when he took the stage to share his story. So please welcome Jay Soileau to our stage today.
Let's go. Thank you for having me, Michelle. I'm really excited.
Yes, me too, Jay. Thank you so much for agreeing to share your story. And, as we learned in Boca, that we are here to be a bright light for people and an offering. So thank you for agreeing to share your messy middle today.
Absolutely. It's an
Yeah,
honor. Thank you.
you bet. So can you take us back to that time when things were just a mess and you were having to figure it all out and go through some hard times? Can you take us back to that time and what you were going through?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start out with kind of earlier childhood because that's where the mess started for me, was very young adult or young child, really.
Yeah.
By the time I was 10, I started dabbling with drugs. I grew up in a chaotic household. Drugs and alcohol were around me. It was just a normal thing for me. And so I was exposed to things at a really early age that most people, most kids, in fact, I have two young kids now, one that's around that age. And when I look at her, it blows my mind to think that I was exposed to all these things at her age. But
Mm.
you are a product of your environment. And so that's exactly what happened to me. Is I started experimenting with drugs at 10. No one really noticed. Everyone in my family was kind of doing the same thing. And it really took hold of me. It allowed me to get around older kids because I was
Mm.
cool now. I could hang out with them, right? They used to call me Little J, which was funny, or Lil J, Lilj. So so Lil J was now cool. He was dabbling in drugs and hanging out with the older kids who were in my neighborhood 10 years older than me. So obviously doing much worse things than I
Wow.
should have been doing at that point. But I tagged right along and I followed suit with that. So by 13, I'd done just about every hard drug you could imagine: cocaine, ecstasy, acid, all the things. By 16, it had progressed so much that I was already facing juvenile life in a juvenile prison because I had accumulated 3 felony drug charges, one being in a school zone, very, very serious charges on 3 different offenses. And so I was deemed as a habitual offender and basically written off and sentenced juvenile life, and did until I was 18, and hospitals, facilities, rehabs, jail, of course, all these different things. Because at first it was recreation, but that didn't last long. My mom is also a severe drug addict, alcoholic. This runs deep in my family. And so it quickly went from recreation to addiction. And by the time I was 16, it was full blown addiction. So I was doing things to keep that alive. And of course, that led me into a really dark place. And so I'd love to say that was like the end. I went away and I learned my lesson and I got out and everything was sunshine and rainbows. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case for me. When I was released at age 18, I did turn my life around substantially. I got into network marketing. I started getting into personal development. Inside of network marketing, this particular company was the Amway business back in the day.
Yeah.
Right. And like everybody
All that
knows about
we've all been
Amway.
there, right?
Yeah, everybody's done that, and listen, I would not trade that for the world. I have nothing at all ever negative to say about that organization or what they do or how that whole thing goes. I never made really any money doing it, but it radically changed my
Mm.
life because they were all about reading and learning about leadership and nurturing your relationships and all these things that I had not yet been exposed to.
Priceless.
And so I started
Right.
seeing the leaders have a different type of relationship with their spouse than I had ever seen. I started seeing
Mm.
people showing up and being consistent. I started seeing people live with integrity. All of these things were like, oh my gosh, this is super attractive. And I had a burning desire inside of me to grow and learn and change and then become like them. And so I built that business for several years. I cleaned up my life. Things were on a really good trajectory for me. And then something happened kind of intermittently between the years. I had some relapses and some different things. But about a decade ago, I was managing a gym and working for someone else. And I was so underwater with work. And it didn't matter how much I did. I mean, this was 10 years ago, and I had VAs in the Philippines. I was doing all kind of things to try to keep my head afloat at this facility. And it just was never enough. You know, it was, we need a little more, we need a little more, we need a little more. And so I got to the point where I was working late at night. I was coming in super early. And one day, the owner of the business said, Jay, I think you might want to get tested for ADD or ADHD. Now, listen, I'd been deemed ADHD my entire life. They'd tried to give me every medication that you could. I was troubled, right? I was a really bad, hard to love child, got kicked out of school, all the things. And so I had had those labels on me for years before this lady said this. But this time, I knew about the drugs that were attached to that label, and they were my favorite kind of drugs, stimulants, right? I loved back in the day stimulants. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I will go get tested. And I knew inside of me where this was going to lead. And so I did. My wife and I went to a Christian counselor, sat down with this person, did the test, and I knocked it out of the park. He's like, you're the most ADHD person we've ever seen, right? Passed it with flying colors. Everyone was proud. And
Not the test you want to pass.
no,
Okay.
right. I always seem to pass the ones that like I shouldn't be proud of, but I nailed this one.
That's
And
funny.
so, of course, I walk out and I'm like, all right, well, I guess that is what it is. The Christian pastor said so. And he also gave me a prescription of Adderall. And I literally went and got that filled. And I knew, Michelle, where this was going to take me. I knew it, but I was in my mind, I guess, trying to justify it.
Yeah.
I took the first one because he gave me a low dose at first. I took the first one. I immediately went back the next day and told him it didn't work because I wanted to get high. Like I wanted these things to last a little longer. So he gave me a higher dose. I went back immediately the next day and said, it's kind of starting to work, but I think I need a little bit higher dose. Within 3 days, I had the max dose that you can legally be prescribed.
And the fact that they would do that is ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. Well, you in your space, I mean, generally speaking, these days, the last person you want to talk to about your health is a doctor, right? And so, sadly, but anyway, so I am like all in on this drug, and immediately I'm abusing it. I'm not sleeping. I'm already in kind of a mess because I'm working this job that I can't ever do enough for. I'm not getting paid what I was promised or hoped to be getting paid, and so I'm slowly sinking financially already. I'm 28 years old and I'm like feeling like a total failure. And so this drug is allowing me to stay up late, work harder, work longer. And in my mind, it's going to be the thing that's going to get me out. But it was just digging me deeper and deeper and deeper until finally I got to the end of my rope and we were bankrupt. I was borderline suicidal, having a lot of thoughts about that. I had a newborn baby girl who I could not even buy baby formula for. And I was at a really, really low. And what was hard about this is I had already dug myself out of this countless times before and never thought I would be back. Right. And so here I am with all of this knowledge and information and inspiration from my personal development that is telling me that I can do and I can be so much more, but yet I'm back to living that old addict lifestyle. My marriage is suffering. I'm completely out of shape. I'm at a really, really low point. And this is where things pretty much had me, rock bottom. And it's like, these are where some changes had to be made. And so I had a really profound spiritual experience, and I won't get into the nitty gritty of it, but basically I believe I was delivered from that spirit of addiction is my personal belief. It's a generational curse that goes deep in my family. Had a spiritual experience one night knew that I needed to ditch the medications, woke my wife up at 3 a.m., told her what happened. She was blown away. I threw the medicine away and I suffered. I'm talking about
Oh,
suffered at a high level for months and months and months. Lost the job I was working, again, completely bankrupt, like the darkest time of my life.
wow.
And
And kudos to your wife for sticking it through with you.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, because I was very hard to be around. I'll
Mhm.
say it that way. I mean, I used to drive around just hoping someone would like cut me off or get in my way because I was so angry I just wanted to hurt someone. And it was like, if I don't hurt someone else, I'm going to hurt myself. And thank God nothing ever happened and like everybody kind of stayed out of my way. But that's where I was at. It's like
Yeah.
it's either I've got to release this rage somehow. And so I went from, depression to rage to sadness to all the things because I'd been for a couple of years just staying up for days and days at a time, like not processing anything, not taking care of my body. And so anyway, that really took a hit on my self-image. That took a
Mm,
hit on the way I kind of viewed myself and respected myself. Obviously, I thought I had that figured out. And nope, Jay, here you are again. This is who you really are. You're
mm,
really a drug addict. Your whole family's a drug addict. You're always going to be a drug addict. You're not worth anything more than that. And I'm just constantly in this state of mental ping pong.
wow.
And then I'm finally get off the couch and I'm sitting at the table and I'm lost my job. I have no income. Everything's falling apart. And I Google how to make money from home. And I'm like desperate, just searching for any way that I could, because I know I can't go in the public like this.
Yeah.
My emotions are too all over the place. There's no way. I sleep constantly, or I slept constantly. I was so tired all the time. So I'm searching this and I hear this internal voice that says, you need to start a fitness business. Now, this seems like very, woo woo and whatever.
No, I love
Uh,
woo woo.
but I am I'm a spiritual
Me too.
person. I believe that there's a bigger plan for our lives. And anyway, I hear this internal voice and immediately I'm like, there's no way I can start a fitness business. I'm bankrupt. I'm the most out of shape I've ever been. There's no telling what kind of damage I did to my body. Like, I don't know how long this is going to take to recover,
Right.
right? I'm sorting through all these things, no money, no resources, no clients, all of this. Well, prior to that, for a couple of years, I ran a fitness studio here in the one I was telling you about.
Yeah.
And it was actually very successful. I mean, we had 10% of the population. It's in a small town. I had a lot of members. The gym was actually successful, and I made tons of contacts through that. And so I
Ah.
started thinking like, well, maybe it would be possible one day to do that.
Mm.
And the next thing I heard was take the next step and have the next conversation. And I'm telling you, Michelle, this has become a philosophy of mine. It's my MO. It's like I don't know where it's going to come from. I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't know how I'm going to do any of this, but I'm going to take the next step. Literally today in my journaling, I'm not feeling it today. Can I be real? Like, can
Yes,
I be real?
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I'm the motivational guy. I have the
Yeah.
Conquer Me podcast, and I have all the things that are about overcoming yourself and being a better version and all the things we'll talk about.
Mm.
I wasn't feeling it today. Like, I got up, I'm grinding to get out of the bed and not hit snooze. I get in my chair. I don't want to do my quiet time. I just don't feel like it. But I have a philosophy that says, just show up,
Yeah.
just take the next step, have the next conversation. And so I did this and I ended up starting a fitness studio. It started in the park. And this is where things really started to kind of turn around for me. I'm no longer taking the drug. I'm not drinking alcohol. I'm starting to work out again. I post something on Facebook and say, hey, I'm going to do a free boot camp in the park. I'd been out of fitness. I'd been out of that gym now for a year and a half or so at that point. I'm going to do something in fitness again. I had 4 ladies show up to that boot camp. I put the equipment that I made, homemade, inside of my trunk.
Oh
I
my.
literally took concrete, so like cement, filled up basketballs, and made kettlebells, heated up PVC pipes in the oven to where they were pliable and made kettlebells. It's hysterical. I've got
Oh
all the
my
pictures.
God.
Yeah, like I was busted. When I say I was broke, I mean I was like extra broke. A kettlebell at that point was like $20, but there was
Yeah.
no way that was happening. So,
Right.
so I
Right.
made my own fitness equipment. I took a tire and a sledgehammer and whatever I could find around the yard. I put it inside of my old beat up Ford Taurus and I took it to the park and I ran a boot camp workout. I had a blast. They had a blast. And all of them were like, Jay, if you did this more regularly, we would come. And it was like confirmation.
Yes.
Maybe there's something to it.
Evidence, as
Yes,
Nick
evidence. So
says.
so
Yeah.
now I'm going, okay, maybe this is possible. It just worked over here. Maybe I can do more. And I won't bore you with the whole long story, but basically we've gone from that to growing a pretty sizable fitness studio in a newer location. It's been incredible, right? Now, I will be fair and say that it has not been all sunshine and rainbows. It is very difficult. It
I
is a
wouldn't believe you if you
business.
said it was.
Right, right. It has its ups and downs. I
Sure.
mean, even right now with all the economic changes, we're having to really pivot. And so, but it's been incredible and it's changed the trajectory of so many people's lives in our community and
Mm.
allowed me to just really dig my claws into the impact that I'm making here in this little small community, and it's been super fulfilling. So
So good.
that has over the last 10 years been my mechanism of personal development is growing a
Yeah.
gym from scratch, right?
Right.
So learning the marketing, learning the sales, learning the fulfillment, navigating all the relationships, hiring a
Mm.
team, figuring all that out, becoming a better leader. It's been incredible to help me become the person that I am today. And through that process, I've really started to flesh out the idea that I have a story,
Yeah.
I've been through some things, and there's an audience out there that only I will resonate with.
That's right. That's
And
right.
if I don't accept invitations like this one that you
Mhm.
gave me, because frankly, I don't look forward to these things. I'm glad to do this, but seriously, it's like, I don't
Well, it's
know.
hard
I'm
talking about your messy middle.
Yeah,
It's
right,
hard.
right. And over and over and over. And part of
Yeah.
me wants to just disconnect
It
from that
sucks,
and move
actually.
on. It does suck. So if we're going
Yeah.
to be honest, which I think, I'm that guy and I
Yeah.
want to be frank, especially with your audience.
Yeah.
That's part of my message is face the
Right.
facts, right?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily enjoy these conversations because it just reminds me over
Mm.
and over and over of all the things that I went through that I'm not proud of.
Yeah.
However, the reframe of all of that is it has now become my message.
Yeah.
And so, as much as I dislike it some days, there's usually someone that reaches out and goes, dude, like, I totally relate.
Yeah.
What my favorite part is when they say, Jay, I am completely mind blown. I would have never imagined you being a, meth addict
Right.
and being sentenced to all this, this jail
Yeah.
time and all these things. So all that to say, I'm really, I'm glad to share the message and I hope that it's inspirational. And as I continue to do that, in the beginning, it was scary. In
Mm.
fact, I had a coach one time and he's like, dude, you're holding yourself back in so many ways. Like you have so much more potential than you realize. You need to just go share your story.
Yeah. Because
And at,
when we don't share it, it kind of owns us. It's like, oh,
yeah,
is my secret going to be found out? And, then people can judge me. But when we're the one who share it, we own it.
right.
It is what it is. And you can't hurt me with it.
Yep, it puts you back in power. And I
Yeah.
kind of had a glimpse of that back then. And I had shared some things openly, and everyone knew I struggle with addiction, and they knew all those things. But
Yeah.
he said, dude, you need to do a Facebook Live, and you literally need to go start to finish. And he said, I don't care if anybody's watching or if there's 1,000 people watching. Don't even look at the camera if you can't, if it's too much. Just let it be recording, and you just tell your story.
Wow.
And I did that, and it was probably 45 minutes long or so, maybe an hour. And I cried and I went through the whole thing, and I was so blown away. One, how much freedom it gave me,
Yeah.
and two, how many people reached out to me, two of them being suicidal. And
Wow.
so at that moment, I was like, okay, I don't have the perfect package for
Mm.
this message. I don't know exactly how to present it. I don't know who the audience is. But I really feel like I need to learn how to communicate this the
Yeah.
best I can
That was
so
more
that
evidence
hopefully,
that
Right,
you're on
right.
the right path. Yeah.
Yes. So that hopefully someone could hear the message and not take their own life or not
Right.
continue down the path of addiction or whatever those things are. So for the past couple of years, and this kind of leads up to how we met, is I've been trying to hone that skill.
Mm,
And when I sit back and I go, hey, like I talk to the people closest to me and I go, hey, what do you think I'm decent at? Like take the gym away, take the things that I've already done away. If it's a skill or a gift or whatever, like what do you see in me? And communication comes up over
mm,
and over and over.
yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I've got this story that resonates with a lot of people that could potentially be helpful.
Mhm.
And I already have some raw material of an ability to communicate. Why not learn how to communicate this message
Right. In a transformational way.
in a transformational way? And
Yeah.
so that's how we linked up is I'm working with Nick,
Yeah.
who is an incredible speaking coach. You're
Incredible.
working with Nick, and he's really helped me see how this could not only be life changing for a lot of people to hear the message and to be
Yes.
inspired and moved, but also life changing for me
Yeah.
by way of allowing me to have a bigger voice, a bigger impact, to monetize with coaching and all
Right.
those other things that like people are willing to come to me after I speak and they go, "Hey, how do I learn more about how to work with you? How do I?" So I'm excited to be able to present that. So the last couple years has been me writing a book, hosting a podcast, which is a top-rated podcast, which I'm really proud of, called Conquer Me.
Okay.
The book was an Amazon bestseller in 3 categories. Really,
Now,
really
what's the name of
awesome.
the book?
Conquer Me. So
Oh,
everything
okay.
is
Gotcha.
branded Conquer Me. Yep.
Gotcha.
And all of that was basically a collection of the ideas, the philosophies, the mindsets, the disciplines, the skills that I've learned over the last 10 years
Mhm.
of going from where I was,
Yeah.
desperate drug addict, basically
Mhm.
with a family that he couldn't support,
Yeah.
to now moving on to starting multiple businesses, running a gym, having a podcast, writing a book, becoming a transformational speaker. And what I figured out, and this will be a big piece, and Nick speaks to this too, is the majority of people's struggles is not actually what they're trying to learn. Like it's not really fitness. So I started a
Mhm.
gym because I wanted to help people lose weight
Yeah.
because so many people were screaming about wanting to lose weight.
Yeah.
And I ended up counting people's reps and helping them lose a little weight, but they would never keep it off. And
Mhm.
so over the time of working with these clients, I started hearing their language, and it was self-defeating language, and it
Ah.
was non-committal language, and it was all the same language that I used when I was a victim and a drug addict and trying
Mhm.
to make excuses for my life. And little did I know, continuing to self-sabotage by the
Wow.
way that I was talking, which was leading to beliefs, which was leading to the way I was operating and showing up in life. And so I'm like, man, I had this revelation one day. If I really want to help these clients lose weight and get healthy, which is, as you know, is a much bigger picture,
Yeah.
I've got to start working on mindset.
Mm.
When they say I'm going to try 5
Yeah.
times in a 5-minute conversation,
Yeah.
I've got to say, hey, Michelle, let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it. You know how I know you're not going to do it? Because you've said try 5
Try.
times, and try is not very committal.
No. Right.
You've
Yeah.
already talked your way out of it. Can you
Yeah.
see how? And then usually if they're honest, they'll go, well, you're right. I have no intention of doing that. Yeah,
Wow.
if it all works out and all the stars align and it's not inconvenient, maybe I might get around to it. You're not going to be there, right?
Right.
So let's face the facts. And I started basically taking people through the process that I went through to get off the drugs and move my life in a more positive way.
Mhm.
And suddenly their fitness results were completely different. Now
Wow.
all of a sudden they're losing the weight, they're feeling better, they're doing projects that they put off for years because they're in a better mental space. They have created space to do other things. Like
Mm.
they're taking care of their health, so now they're able to go take care of other things. And so that just sent me on a major mission to learn the ins and outs of human behavior, psychology. Like that's my jam. And so
Yeah.
now I'm spending
That's
more
Nick's
time.
jam too.
It is Nick's jam. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why we speak the same language, right? It's
Yeah.
like, as I'm listening to him, I'm going, yes, 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 yes. And so that's my message with other people is it doesn't matter where you start from, but you can't go to the next level with the same mindset.
Right.
It's going to have to change. You're going to have to
Yeah.
change your paradigms, your beliefs. And then of course, you and I both understand that our presentation that we're showing up with today is just a reflection of the beliefs that we adopted
Mhm.
yesterday.
Yeah.
And we continue to reaffirm and believe. And so my work inside of my coaching now, I'm still running the gym,
Yeah.
but I also have Conquer Me coaching aside from the book and podcast for people that want to go deeper. Uh, and we really look at the stories that
Mm.
they've been telling themselves. We really look at, the way I describe it is I help people redefine the meaning of their past,
Mm.
which is usually not good.
And who better to do that than you? My
Right.
word.
It's usually, I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as them. It's comparison. It's perfectionist mentality. It's all the things that we grew up with. Because when you think about it, most of us have parents that are also just trying to figure it out. They don't have a good handle on this thing called life, right? They're just trying to navigate it the best way they can. And they're instilling all of their insecurities on us. And then even if you do have a family or an upbringing that wasn't as chaotic as mine and maybe what we would consider normal, whatever that is,
Yeah, right.
a lot of times those parents are so hard on their kids to perform at a high level that creates these insecurities. So plus we're given an identity, we're given a name, we're given a belief system, a race. Hey, you're white or you're black, right? So that comes with certain things. We're given
Mm.
a political identity. We're given ideas about money. Money doesn't grow on trees. The
Right.
money, whatever those things are, we didn't get to choose any of that.
Yeah.
So by the time we wake up and have some level of awareness, we've already adopted these belief systems
Yeah.
that in many cases are not in line with the person that we were created to be.
Right. Now I have a question about that. How do you find that that knowledge that you have now affects your parenting?
That's a great question. So so it's everything, right? And I'm so thankful for the mess
Yeah.
because I would never have the level of awareness that I have now with the way that I communicate and the way that I navigate my relationships with my kids. And so I'm very careful. And listen, I'm figuring this out too. I'm very careful on how I speak to my kids, what I say to my kids, because they're just like fragile little
Yeah.
ducklings, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
they can be hurt so easily, and one thing can be taken a certain way,
Mhm.
and that can literally start to form a belief system,
Yes.
right? If I
Yes.
come in and I say, "You never clean your room. You never do what I ask you to do." That can easily be translated as
Mm.
I'm never good enough.
Good enough. Yeah.
And so no matter
Yeah.
what I do, I'm not going to be successful. And like it's
Yeah.
just crazy how all of that works. And
Your
so
kids are so lucky.
well, thank you. I hope so. Most days I
Yeah.
don't know, but I sure hope so. So all of that to say, Michelle, is that no matter what your upbringing is, if you're listening to this, there's a good chance that there's a massive gap between the person that you are today and the person that you were created to be.
Yeah.
And whether you believe the Bible or you believe whatever, there's a story in the Bible that talks about talents. And it says that God gives us talents. And in my mind, whether it's God, universe, whatever your belief system is,
Mhm, mhm.
you have gifts, seeds of greatness inside of you that are supposed to blossom,
Yeah.
but they're not going to blossom while we're here. They can only blossom when we get here.
Yeah.
And the path to that is in my messaging, conquering me. It's
Yeah.
conquering my old belief systems. It's conquering the meaning that I placed on my past. It's conquering my destructive daily habits. All of those things start here with me.
Yeah. Yeah. A hundred
So,
percent. 100%. That's incredible. I mean, what a great name, Conquer Me. I mean, Perfect.
Oh, thank you.
Perfect. And I had the opportunity to meet your family briefly when we were in Florida, and you and Amy are doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
You really are. Yeah, they're
Really
just
appreciate
such great kids. And yeah, so don't we all wish we had parents like that have been through all that you've been through and
it.
they're on the other side. I mean, I had a really interesting childhood as well.
Mhm.
People they just didn't know back then. They didn't
Right.
know the impact that they were having on our little lives as we, blossomed into young adults and what have you.
Yep.
So, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you kind of hoped that would come up, but just on the way the story went, it didn't? Is there anything that you would like to have?
Yeah, so I think one piece of this, and I'm trying to, I don't know exactly who your audience is in terms of demographics and all that, but I'm sure we share a similar audience. And this can be really overwhelming. So for
Mm,
someone who spent years in doing the work, right, the deep work, the introspective work, um, this stuff kind of comes second nature to us. We
yeah,
kind of understand when we're in a funk,
yeah.
that we're in a funk because of a story that we're telling ourselves, and that we can easily go back and change that story, and our
Mhm.
state can be changed at any moment. And all this stuff is like, oh, we've overcome depression just by learning how to, manage our mindset and our feelings and all that. But if you've never done those things, and you're listening to this and you're living in chronic overwhelm and you're living in depression and you don't know what your next steps are, and you're feeling all of that tension, it can really be a lot
Yeah,
to unpack, right? And so I
yeah.
can remember going through some of these trainings and listening to these podcasts, and it's just mind blowing. But what I would say for people is find some form of content that resonates with you. Maybe it's a podcast by one of the greats like Ed Milet or some of
Mhm.
these guys that are really pumping out great content. Maybe it's listening to these YouTube videos that you're putting out, Michelle. Maybe it's getting a hold of a good book. But the key to overcoming that gap is starting to do some personal development,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
that looks like. And it blows my mind. I mean, I coach a lot of different groups, men's groups, women's groups, all of that. And it blows my mind when I ask them, what are you reading and what are you listening to that's going to close this gap?
Mhm.
And they go, well, I'm not really reading or listening to anything. And I'm hanging around the same 5 friends
Yeah,
that I've been hanging around with for the last 20 years. Guys, understand that for things to change, you have to change.
yeah.
Your circle might have to change. The things
Mhm.
that you're reading and listening to, you might turn off the news and pick up a book. It's these little subtle things, but that's the way. That's the first step.
Right.
And then every step you take, you'll get new insights, new things will kind of come alive inside of you.
Mhm.
But I just know when I get a new client, they go, man, this is just so overwhelming, Jay. I don't even know where to start. Just pick up something.
Yeah. And like Nick says, all that you've been through allows you to condense time for people so that
Yes.
they don't have to spend 10 years figuring it out. You condense time, they can spend 6 months and kind of be on a really good path to, you know, the
Correct.
the end result that you've achieved for. And I know that we don't ever finish. We're always on a
Right.
path of, continuing to improve and continuing to get better. And that's amazing. So where can people find you on social media, your website, your podcast, all the things? And I'll have you email me the links for everything and I'll include it in the show notes. But where can people find you?
Yeah, for sure. So one last thing before I give you
Yeah.
that, and I
Yeah.
want to make sure I don't walk away from this interview without saying this, because it's been the one thing that has changed my life. Guys, if you're in position to hire a coach, hire
Oh,
a coach.
oh,
What
yes.
Michelle just told you, if you want to condense time, there are people who are 10 years ahead of you
Yep.
that can help you in a very short amount of time, within months rather than years, move forward in a decade's time, right? Condense a decade's worth of time into a few months. It literally can happen that way
Mhm.
if you hire a coach. And so if you're in a position where you're not happy with where you're at, you know that things need to change, whether it be in your mindset, your fitness, health, marriage, whatever that is, finances, and you're in position to hire a coach, a good coach will be the best investment you ever make.
100%. 100%. I agree with that. And I mean, we made quite an investment to go down and be coached by Nick.
Yep.
And best thing I ever did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And like Nick says, if your coach doesn't have a coach, get a new coach.
For sure. I know it blows people. So I still do like our some of our fitness consults and stuff, and people come in and they go, and I tell them about the same thing. I'm like, hey, mentorship will change your life. You don't need more information. You need mentorship.
Yeah.
All the things are out there on the internet. You need mentorship, someone who's going to understand you, who's going to meet you where you are, who's going to help you sort through the psychological stuff that's keeping you stuck and help you stay on track. That's what you need. Some level of structure, accountability, focus. You need a mentor.
Yeah.
And they go, well, do you have a mentor? And I kind of laugh and I'm like, if you knew how much money I've spent over the last 5 years on mentors, you would understand why I'm not afraid to ask you for X amount of dollars for me to coach you, because I've spent it over and over and over. So anyway, you guys can find me on Facebook at Jay Soileau. So it's Jay. My last name is spelled Soileau. I'm from Louisiana, so it's Cajun French. Looks nothing like it sounds, but Jay Soileau on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at Jay, the same. My book is Conquer Me. My podcast is Conquer Me Podcast. And yeah, those are all the main platforms that I'm hanging out on. So
perfect. Now you're on Amazon. Your book is on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. I have a YouTube channel also. So yeah, I'm out there.
Yeah, fantastic. This has been such a pleasure, Jay. And thank you. I know that it sucks to share our messy middle, and it's not fun because we relive it and relive it and relive it.
Yeah.
I just know that you have touched lives today. And that's what we're here for, is to be an offering to those who need us, as our coach and mentor says.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Of course, it's an honor. I appreciate the opportunity.
You bet.